What's okay to steal? Digital goods that are no longer sold or distributed by any other means other than piracy. You wouldn't download a bear, I'd download your mom, if there was a hard drive big enough. Pence from a college admissions counselor at a college fair. One time Amazon sent me 2 of the same product, but I only paid for and needed one, so I sent the extra back and got the refund. I like to think I stole from Amazon that day. I have had something break on me 46 days after purchase and ordered another, refunded the second one, sent them the first one, kept the second one. I call that sticking it to the corporate man. The ducks at the lake, they're free. I have 28 ducks. Nobody tells you this. You can just claim ownership of any animals you want. See a whale, it's your whale. Who's gonna argue with you? What they gonna do? Take your whale. I haven't seen r/fs with ducks in a while, now that I think about it. Media and in particular games that have no longer first party releases, and the only way to get them is through third party overpriced sellers. In other words, it is morally just to emulate obscure video. Honestly, pirates have saved so many video games from oblivion. Oblivion isn't even that bad a game. Come on man. Anything from the trash or dumpster, anything. My pop used to work midnights and do some dumpster diving during his rounds. It was usually mostly odd junk. Then one morning he came home with a brand new set of expensive cookware from Let's Say It Rhymes with Alphalin, and my mom was absolutely ecstatic. Apparently it was worth several hundreds of dollars, but these were just slightly blemished. You really had to look, but they had random scuff marks or small dents, so they couldn't be sold. A few days later, he comes home with a big turkey roasting pan and some other smaller accessories. At this point he might as well be Santa Claus according to my mom. Next week, he comes home all bummed out. The company clearly caught on, and every piece he pulled out had a hole drilled right through the bottom. We still have those pans, though. What a dick move on the company's part. It's not like they got anything out of screwing you out of it, like a sweet Alibaba sword that you could use to chop a camel right in its hump then drink the milk. This stuff is our future, man. Adobe products. I'm still using a copy of Photoshop 6 that fell off a truck back in 2000. CS2 is free. I'm using 7 on my XP Media Center Pro Edition, which is cool because they both fell off different trucks. I hate the subscription model. I'm in my 40s and pirated my fair share of Adobe products over the years. A few weeks ago my teenager was trying to find an old PC game on Steam etc. and couldn't even find a way to buy it. I showed him how to sail the high seas and find it. Today he came to me and said, "Dad, I found cracked Adobe Premiere and got it to work." Don't think I've ever been prouder. Teach him how to use a VPN so you don't get a DMCA letter in the near future. Speaking from experience, but Photoshop can be yours for a mere £238, $311 with a year's subscription. Wi-Fi from the jack in the box by my house. Got through grad school leeching from an unsecured signal. My first app in 2010 didn't have Wi-Fi and there was no way 19-year-old me could afford it. Luckily back in the day most people didn't secure their Wi-Fi, so I had 8 options. Well, it's trespassing on your property. Is it really stealing? This household does not call it. Stand your ground and shoot the signal. Living over a decade in Japan, I've come to the conclusion that umbrellas are fair game. Take an umbrella, leave an umbrella. Who buys an umbrella anyway? You can get them for free at the coffee shop in those metal cans. My first day in Japan it was raining. We bought an umbrella at a 7-Eleven. A few blocks after purchasing one we found another, open and blowing down the street. I grabbed it and used it for the entire trip. AWWU adopted a stray. On my trip to Japan, it was raining like crazy. Just when we arrived with the metro from the airport, my friend and me were standing there with all our luggage, thinking about what to do, when a man appeared out of nowhere and gave us 2 umbrellas. He left before we even realized what happened. It was magical. E-textbooks. Persons can go F* themselves. Yes, the online textbook viewer is awful too. Once I had to buy a $230 Pearson math textbook. I hated it, and it had multiple wrong answers in the practice question answer key. I returned it 2 weeks later and just found a PDF online. Library Genesis. I got through all of psychology this year with a PDF of the textbook and an e-reader extension. Professors want $150 plus for the exact same thing, and they are all authors of the effing textbook they assign. How is that ethical? What a effing racket. My university made it against policy to assign your own textbook, thankfully. F that grift. Something that was stolen from you. A friend of mine had 2 of his horses stolen. Police told us this is more trouble than it's worth. So we were on our own. We tracked down the horses and stole them back. How did you track down the horses and steal them back? This seems like quite a story. Logic horseman. Seriously, the more trouble than it's worth part pisses me off. That's literally inviting vigilante justice in. That's how Shen's badly a lot of the time. In Poland, it happens very often with minor crimes. Even if the victim gives the police enough info about the criminal, such as name, address, telephone number, IP number, SMS history, etc. After a few weeks, the victim receives a letter that their case was closed because they couldn't track the perpetrator down. A friend of mine had his family's land stolen during the dictator years here. When he was a kid, he studied his entire childhood with the aim of becoming a lawyer to win the land back. Despite not having much money, he excelled, won scholarships, entered the best law school in the country, and became a lawyer, which is when he realized it was completely impossible to win back his family land because our courts are effing corruptish and terrible. So he and his brother smuggled guns into the country and formed a posse and took it back by force. The end. More trouble than it's worth finding 2 horses worth several thousands of dollars each. Expensive textbooks. BOK.cc. Also Libgen pointers. Your own bike back. This happened to me as a kid. Got my first big boy bike as a present. Went to a friend's house and chained it outside. Not even 15 minutes pass. We walk out. Chain has been cut and bike's gone. I even spotted the kid that stole it right away in the distance. My dad was pissed, but wasn't really my fault. Anyway, spotted some kid riding it a few weeks later near an arcade. I knew it was my bike because the kid that stole it didn't even bother to take off the Venom and Spider-Man stickers that I slapped on it. I was with 3 other friends when I recovered it, so the kid that stole it didn't even try arguing or verbally fight back. He just stood there silently as I told him to give me my bike back. Me and the boys going to get my Venom and Spider-Man bike back. Would that be stealing or recovering? Rescuing. It's in the basement of the Alamo. Oof. Had my ride of 11 years stolen from me last week. This one stings. Never had my bike stolen, but definitely had stolen off of my bike. Lights, pedals, wheels, seat, chain, the effing stem cap. I had to learn the name of that part just to find a replacement. Always make sure to get your serial number. It's on the post below your pedals. I just had my bike stolen and that's how the cops found it. The picture of an NFT. You don't have to steal it. You can just right click and copy. No harm done. Whoa, you wouldn't download a car, would you? The crazy part is that I've never seen a single NFT that's even worth making this much effort to have it. Them shits are ugly as sin. Why would I ever spend money just to say I was the owner of it? Academic papers and textbooks. The actual authors don't see a cent of it. It all goes to the publisher who get to charge like $40 to read it once. Oh, and also, in order to submit to those journals, you have to pay for it. Definitely don't ever type chub.se into your browser if you're looking for access to a paper. It certainly doesn't have a database of pirated journal articles or really practically anything with a DOI. Eater. You also definitely can't download the file as a PDF, and clicking the source on the left side will not copy the citation to your clipboard. And it's absolutely not mirrored at chub.street or chub.ru if your ICE blocks it, or Libgen pointers. Definitely doesn't have digital copies of nearly any novel, textbook or pretty much anything with an ISBN. For academic articles, if you email the authors they'll almost always send you their paper for free and be really happy about it too. I don't have time to wait for a reply. My paper citations are due tomorrow. Theft it is. You don't always have to pay to submit it, but getting paid for your work is extremely rare. Best you can expect is submitting for free. Then the journal gets to charge your school $30k just so you can access your own damn paper. The spare from a set of twin babies. I believe they call that triplets. When I had twins, My cousin's wife's mother, visited often from China, offered real actual money for me to give my children to her daughter. Like, chill lady, I won't sell them for anything less than 100k per baby. Have to recoup my costs of pregnancy and delivery related health problems. Old Nintendo games. If they refuse to maintain their old game systems, then there's nothing wrong with emulating them. Yeah, if you can't even buy a game anymore, there is no ethical argument against pirating. Technically you can track down an old physical copy, but at that point you're only benefiting some reseller, not the people who actually own the rights to the game. Even if you found the hardware too, it might not even work anymore. Call me a /r/piracy subscriber, but I think any cultural product that is not available for purchase, out of print, not sold in the respective area, missing or unclear rights situation, not offered because it's not deemed worth it by the rights holder, etc., is and should be completely fair game. In fact, make it copyright law. As a rights holder, either you offer your product under my whatever terms you deem appropriate, or it can be copied. In times of digital unlimited copies, no locking up, and creating fake scarcity should be allowed. This would create an incentive for rights holders to make available their often huge catalogs of old and unavailable works, and for them to work out issues where rights are unclear or certain works or language versions are not available in certain regions, because it's not worth it. If so, F you. People are officially allowed to copy it. You don't get to hold humanity back. As a member of the Thieves Guild, we abide by the directive never steal that which can't be held, so reverse engineer that. Never steal from another member of the guild. Never kill anyone on the job. This is not the Dark Brotherhood. Animals and monsters can be slain if necessary. Don't steal from the poor. The peasants and beggars are under the personal protection of the Grey Fox, particularly on the waterfront. Man, this is just reminding me how whack Skyrim's guild quests were compared to Oblivion. Don't forget the second directive. Never steal from someone who's paid their yearly Thieves Guild dues, lest you end up in the far side of the river with socks full of nickels and a hat full of nails. Fruit from the neighbor's tree that overlaps into your property, you lemon stealing whore. This album, Hey Mr. Jack. Some of my friends think lighters are okay to take when they please. Generic Bics or awesome zippers. Because Bics have no owners, they just migrate from pocket to pocket. Zippers are for life. Bics may have no owners, but they do have keepers. A wandering Bic is free to roam. But if its path is guided by an act of deception, may your smokes be bent and your nug be dry. I like to mention this whenever I see zippers being mentioned. If you ever happen to be near Bradford, Pennsylvania, where zippers are made, they have a really cool, free museum. Highly recommend. At this point, insulin. From companies though, not from diabetics that'd be extra fed up. Well, that would have been good to know. Now I've indirectly killed 3 diabetics. Good that you specified. Honestly, where my fellow corporate office supply collectors don't lie. When I was getting out of the Navy packing up to move, I found about 150 black for official use only pens. I kept 10 and took the rest back to the shop. You found 130 pens, you say? There's only one thief in the military. Someone I went to grad school did a summer internship at Bell Labs in the late 70s. Apparently BL management noticed that a lot of high school and middle school students had their ink binders with the Bell Labs logo. So they devised special 4-ring binders, with the 4-rings not evenly spaced. Their stationery budget apparently shrank markedly. I'm disappointed people didn't start stealing the special hole punches or the paper. Amateurs. Source from Taco Bell. Haha. Lady at my local location yells at me every time I go through drive-thru. Yeah. I'll take some mild please. How many? I say a handful, since that's what I take usually anyways. I get that's not a number. I want to say, well, when you can count to as many damn items I ordered, since I never seem to get them all in the bag. We'll talk, but I don't. I just say 5. After giving birth, anything in the hospital room that's not nailed down, ma'am, please put the nurse back where you found her. No. Kid was in NICU for 2 weeks after birth. The nurses would give me a new pack of preemie diapers every time I used more than 2 or 3 from a pack of 20. Same for those Similac sets that came in 6 packs. I swear I went home with hundreds of diapers and formula bottles. Bless them. I second this. I was too tired to breastfeed. So my daughter was formula fed during the hospital stay. A nurse was able to sneak in a duffel bag full of formula for us to take home on discharge day. Bless her heart. It gets thrown away when you leave, so take it. Less work for us. Also, formula and diapers are given free to hospital. To create new consumers for that brand, we hand them off like hotcakes to help families, but also to screw the mega corporations. We are like drug dealers getting you addicted to Pampers or Huggies. Lol. First one is always free. Nice. Yes, I looked at my itemized hospital bill after giving birth and they fine charged me for warm blankets. WTF really? Eater, $65 per warm blanket each. Keep asking for more supplies. 2. Yes, you already used up all those burp cloths and mesh underwear. Hotel soap, you're not stealing it though. You pay for it in the cost of the room. Is it really stealing? If you paid for it, like taking it from your room or using it isn't stealing. Now going into other rooms or aiding the housekeeper's cart and taking a whole case of it, on the other hand, pretty sure it's stealing. If you raid the housekeeper's cart like my grandma did on our big Disney vacation. But that old bird was shameless about asking for free stuff. Going to conventions with her was hilarious because she never cared about the product they were selling. She just wanted the free pens, stress balls, and lanyards with company logos plastered across them. Lol. Yep, it turns out that if you don't use it, they have to throw it out. I know one hotel chain tried to sanitize them and reuse them, but mostly they throw them away, and it's so wasteful. My heart. What about your bone marrow? This guy's bone marrow. Dibs on his liver. Meat's back on the menu, boys. You don't want my liver. Animals from animal abusers. Done this. Stole a kitten from my grandma's neighbors who would abuse it. When I was like 10ish years old, I would always play with her and cuddle with her when I visited my grandma. The neighbors always left her outside and she would wander into my grandma's yard. The owners would hit her, swing her by her tail, throw her into their basketball hoop in the yard, and put cigarettes out on her. She came up to my mom and I while we were visiting my grandma one day. My grandma told my mom that we should just take her because her neighbors were going to end up killing her. My mom looked at me and said, grab her now. So I did. We drove off with her and gave her a loving home. Anyone evil enough to abuse a sweet innocent kitten like that deserves to rot in hell. Glad you rescued her and gave her a much better environment. When I was 8, my mom brought home a 6-month-old golden retriever. Apparently the dog, belonged to a co-worker's neighbor. The neighbor would beat her, starved her, she was skin and bones, and put cigarettes out on her. She still had burns. When he left, the co-worker broke in and stole her. The co-worker obviously couldn't keep the dog at their apartment, so they brought her to work. My mom took her, and she was a beloved member of my family for 12 years. She had an overeating disorder, would do anything just to get to garbage, her whole life for obvious reasons, but overall an absolutely fantastic dog. I once rescued a kitten from a very mentally unwell friend of mine. His mother had also recently died, so he was living alone and the house was an absolute wreck. He'd graffitied the walls, there was rotten food in the fridge, and no food for the cat. He had a party one day, and I found this tiny little kitten living in complete squalor. So after a couple hours I left the party in a taxi point with little kitten stashed in my coat. I spoke with him a couple of days later, and he agreed that he couldn't look after her. 18 years later, she's still with us, and is a happy little old girl with no signs of slowing down. That's great that she got rescued. My husband told me when he was 19 his neighbors in his apartment building were a bunch of tweakers that had a young cat they obviously abused. It had a broken tail in multiple spots. He rolled up in their apt, grabbed the cat, and said, "This is my cat now. If any of you pieces of sh have a problem with it, come and see me. Is your husband married?" My TZU was liberated from his yard at 2 AM during an ice storm after his owner's BF was seen throwing him down the front steps. He was still a puppy and had ice matted in his fur. It caused him lifelong trauma and brain damage, we suspect, but he was the most devoted dog in the world for 14 years. One of the best cats we ever had was stolen from the next door neighbors after his surprisingly thin mom and siblings disappeared. R.I.P. Bakemono. I've got a story about that actually. Before I was born my dad would drive all around the country to different car swap meets buying and selling. His home was in New York, but he happened to be in Florida staying with a friend after a car show. His friend told him that his neighbor had dogs for dog fighting. My dad's friend wanted to go take the dog, but he would be the first one accused. So the night before my dad left, he snuck into the yard and stole the puppy they had been training. Its ribs were showing through his skin, and its tail was broken into spots. The next day he drove back to New York. We named him Danger, and he lived with us for about 20 happy years before he passed away. Saw some people with a kitten on their yard and a BIEIEI dog. Asked what they were doing. Gonna feed the runt to the dog, they laughed. I went a hug, grabbed the kitty, and ran like F. She's now 15 years old, has arthritis and loves belly rubs. I stole my first abused dog at 6. I saw somebody hitting her over and over again. I waited until they went away, and I called her from my house, which was like 3 houses down. She came. I told my mom what I did and why. She was a beautiful Australian Shepherd, and she saved my life once as well as the life of my other dog. She was awesome. I miss her. My mom stopped on our way home once after seeing 2 young men dragging a very malnourished dog on a shoelace next to the road. When I was a kid, offered them €10 for the dog. They went, nah, we want 50. Mom just put the dog into the car and drove away. Doggo was the sweetest soul, who spent rest of his life loved and pampered. 100% would recommend doing this crime over and over. Mom is a badass. How did they react? Apparently a few grapes from the grocery store. Second, third, or home in a baseball game. Stealing first would look hilarious, because you know the pitcher would just be standing there like TF do I do. You can if the catcher misses. Lol, Putin's tanks. The Ukrainian government says you don't even need to pay taxes on them. As a side note, am I supposed to declare stolen goods for tax purposes? You joke, but the ICE has a field for it on the forms. Ukrainians are now gonna be trading stolen Russian tanks for taxable goods to dodge tax. Fayo. If you're Nicolas Cage, the Declaration of Independence. As someone who worked in security for years, I would turn a blind eye to parents stealing baby food, milk and nappies. I feel like this about food. Like bruh, they're hungry and desperate enough to steal effing food, just let them have the apple. When I was at my most poor, I got banned from a grocery store for stealing floss and toothpaste. Did you know? Snapet doesn't cover hygiene products in the US, just food. You can buy gourmet fresh tuna steaks with Uncle Sam's grocery money, but not a toothbrush or diapers. Extra napkins from food establishments. Larry David has a bit about this in Curb Your Enthusiasm. They tell him he can only take 2 napkins, and he takes a handful. They call the cops on him. Mayo. It's not stealing when they give them out for free. Needed medicines. Company time. Boss makes $1, I make a dime. That's why I poop on company time. Ducks form the park apparently. Anything someone stole from me first. Water, except for Nestle. F Nestle. A glance. I attempted to steal fog once. Missed. It's hard to explain puns to kleptomaniacs because they always take things literally.